the friendship was first. So when we first started this, that was the big thing of like, listen, at the end of the day, no money is worth ruining a friendship. So if there's something that's not right, let's talk about it.
You just heard the voice of Gabriel Ruiz talking about his experience running a Fibrenew franchise with his friend and business partner, Scott Sarver. Gabriel and Scott are buddies who decided to start a Fibrenew franchise together. They own not one, but 2 territories in Omaha, Nebraska. In this podcast, they talk about what led them to the idea of starting a franchise together, how they run it today, and how they really enjoy what they're doing. They also share some advice about partnering with a friend in business and some of the things that they've learned along the way. Thanks for being here with us. Enjoy the conversation, and we hope to talk with you soon. Cheers. All right, really happy to be sitting down in conversation with 2 guys who have a lot to talk about because they have a lot going on of late and a lot of big plans for the future. We have Gabriel Ruiz and Scott Sarver of Fibrenew Omaha. How you doing, guys?
Fantastic.
Good. Very good.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this. We've got a lot to talk about, and there are 3 main things that we have to cover, and then we'll meander in between them. But we're going to start out with some of the things that you guys have been up to lately. You have essentially doubled your territory size, and we want to talk about that. We want to talk about your business model, how you guys work together as a team, who's doing what responsibility-wise and whatnot, and then also what the future looks like and what you guys have for plans down the road. So before we dive in, let's have Gabe, do you mind introducing yourself first?
So Gabriel Ruiz, I enjoy long walks on the beach and candlelit dinners. I try to take our business seriously, but not necessarily myself too seriously. I feel like there's more can be accomplished if we're smiling and a little bit of humor. So tiny bit sarcastic, try to, again, just have fun with everything we do, which is why this works. And he'll get into him in a minute. But
I saw Scott winced when you said a tiny bit sarcastic.
Yeah, because that's the little bit of the sarcastic and me being sarcastic, insert the dad joke there. But my background's been kind of diverse. I've owned and operated a few different businesses, upper management at different points in my life. I've been really all over the country, States at this point, born and raised in New York, spent some time in Connecticut, really up and down the East Coast, some time in Miami, some time here in Nebraska many years ago, then back east and then to California for some years, and then back here in 2017. So I've got a long convoluted story, and I've done e-commerce, retail, B2B, B2C, consulting.
Many miles and many hats you've worn in your
career.
career.
But I've learned a lot. I mean, I don't have a college degree, so I got my education from doing the things, and some of those things I didn't do right. So I theoretically paid for my education that way, and other things I did do right. And either way, I learned a lesson in that process from retail days and training people and having 60 employees and 15 locations to just having kind of a single operator LLC, buying yourself a job type role. So it all translates to something.
Scott, what about you?
Scott Sarver. My background is a little meandery too. I bartended for years, and then I built a mobile car detailing company in Southern California. Got to the point where we were ready to get out of California, and my significant other took a job here. So I sold my business there, and we moved here. I actually went back to school, got my degree, and then tried my hand at the corporate world. And I did corporate sales. The money was good. I just didn't love it in general. And and I met this guy, and he came to me at one point and he was like, I got a crazy idea. What do you think about this?
Well, we got to rewind before that.
Well, a lot happened before that, but
and the only reason why I interrupt you there is because he asked a question of like, how did this become a thing? That actually came prior to that.
A whole different story. Yeah, but yeah. So I'm happy to be settled in where I feel like I belong, and we're gonna have a nice long haul here. But definitely not looking to go back to the corporate world.
No more California, no more corporate world.
Yes.
You've got different plans. Okay. All right.
Yes, both.
So,
he was born and raised in California, and then so neither one of us are from Nebraska originally.
This is probably a good time to hit the rewind and talk about when your paths crossed and how did all that come to be to where you're at today?
So at that point, I was a roofer, kind of newer in that world, and he was an insurance guy, also fairly new in that world. So we were at a networking deal here in Omaha. Omaha Chamber is the biggest chamber in this vicinity, and they have a huge holiday party every year. Like something like 1,800 people go to this thing. I mean, it's massive. It's all these nooks and crannies in the ConAgra campus here in Omaha. So he's in front of me. I don't know him, right? And he's getting some food, and they're like all these little food booths all over the place, food, drinks, and then just other businesses. You're just schmoozing, right? And just shaking hands, kissing babies. So anyway, he's in front of me in the line getting food, and at this point, he's on keto. And I don't know this, but he's in front of me. He's like to the person serving the food. He's like, "I have a burger, no bun, and with bacon or whatever else." So the guy puts it on there. And then it's my turn. I'm right behind him. Me being sarcastic, I was like, "I'll have a burger, but I'll have the bun." So he's hears that, turns around, gives me this look like, who is this guy? Well, fast forward, like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. I'm sitting down eating. He walks around to just go sit somewhere, coincidentally, or he stalked me. I don't know. He wound up sitting at the same table. So then we start talking. I find out he's insurance. I'm in roofing. We have a ton of hail in this market. I'm like, well, we need to be friends. And we wound up having a really good time, kind of people watching, making comments about people around us. And we realized we share a lot of the same humor. So of course we exchanged business cards, and really that's where we met, and that's where the friendship blossomed. In 2019, before COVID, at this point we had become good friends. Our families had become good friends. You know, we're hanging out almost every weekend. And I'm like, hey, you know, I just sold one of my vehicles. I just sold a truck, and I had a stack of cash at that point. I'm like, I could pay off a bunch of bills, or we could flip cars like we talked about. You used to many years ago, and I used to many years ago. So we started wheeling and dealing with some cars. And then fast forward in 2022, through a long story, I found Fibrenew. And I quickly realized this is really cool, but I can't do it by myself because I still have another business. So I call him and I'm like, tell me to F off if you think this is crazy or not, because sometimes that's the conversation of like, you're insane. And I'm like, hear me out. So I started explaining it to him. He's like, that sounds really interesting. And then I'll let you kind of take over from there as we started doing some of the discovery.
Yeah, we started digging a little and, exploring the business model and the scope of work that was available. But I think really what sealed it is when we spent the day with Ann in Lincoln. Spent the day with her, and we kind of got in the car afterwards and looked at each other. I was like, yeah, we can do this. Like
his face lit up like I hadn't seen it in a while at that point. Because again, he was corporate America. I knew he was miserable with where he was at. And I'm like, I think we can have a lot of fun because we love cars. We actually don't do nearly as much in that arena as we thought we would, which is fine. But that was really the beginning of what then became Fibrenew Omaha South.
So that's the first step or chapter in this bigger story, which leads into where you're at now, because you've recently purchased the north side of Omaha. So let's dive into that and just explain how that came to be.
Well, the gal that owned North, she was a month older than us in her endeavor, or in her journey, I should say. And she kind of had a Scott, but not as a business partner, just as a friend. And her Scott took an opportunity, or her significant other took an opportunity in Minnesota, and she wanted to leave in town. So she was not really sitting pretty in that regard, because she also, like me, had something else going on in her life, a full-time job, and was struggling to make things work. So at one point she actually reached out to us, and she's like, hey, if you have the bandwidth, can I borrow Scott? So we said, yeah, it's good for the brand. It's good for blah, blah, blah. So that did that for a bit, and still just struggled. And at one point last year, she reached out to us and she said, I feel like I'm not doing Fibrenew the justice it deserves. I'm not devoting the time like I should. And we knew this from conversations from her. So frankly, we internally had some conversations like it's just a matter of time before she reaches out. So when she did, we said yes, 100%, because we know a lot of people in town. And as I alluded to earlier, we get hail and some other weather here. And some of that stuff wasn't in our territory. So we know this year's going to be good for us with our connections.
I mean, this just bolts on to how you guys think big, go big, let's go for it kind of thinking. So when the timing's right, you guys were ready for it and went from there. So,
I mean, we were thinking about it well before it was on the table. We're already talking about when Ann retires. We're like, what are we going to do with Lincoln? Like, it's how we work. We're dreamers, and then we're out chasing it.
So how did that come together with Omaha North? I mean, pretty smooth process. You guys figured out a price, you figured out a date, and just really went for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, it wouldn't have been the beginning of the year. It historically for us, because we're still newer-ish, the January, February is slower. Like we still haven't really dialed it in where we can make sure we put the right work on the calendar on those days, or maybe, hey, if Aunt Sue isn't in a rush to redo her couch, like put it on those colder, slower months. That's some ironing out we still have to figure out, and this will be the year where we hopefully do a better job, especially with a bigger territory. But so anyway, I say that to say January, February are slower. So to increase the expenses, maybe not the best time, but at the same time, like you have to either go big or go home. We felt like this was the opportunity to say, all right, let's just push forward and really build this thing. So earlier you said like one of our goals, we talked internally about this year, we'd like to bring on a tech at some point, maybe middle or tail end of this year, and then continue to grow it. To be proactive, we brought on an admin to help us with some of the stuff on the back end. This is a great time to show her a lot of things. She's learning a lot and she's having a lot of fun with it, which excites both of us because we both then get the vibe of we don't think she's going to go anywhere.
Right. She does a really good job too, and she's been putting together, our social media stuff, and she's geeking out on it. She seems to really like it, and the results show it. Like she's making good stuff. Gabe was doing a good job on his own, but
hardly.
She's doing a much better job, and she's got us on that consistent schedule where stuff's getting posted all the time, and it makes it easy for us to share on our personal pages and stuff because it's already put together, and it takes a second and we're on our way.
And it's consistent, so like it's just always looks and feels the same.
One of the guys I worked under when I was in the insurance industry he's an interesting dude. This guy does a lot with him with the 50-mile march. But he always had a lot of interesting, like helpful nuggets. Like he knew how to run a business. He knew how to tell you how to run a business. Problem was at the time, it was a bunch of newbies who didn't know what the heck they were doing. So they ended up spinning their wheels a lot. But one of the things he's always told us was, you're worth at least $100 an hour.
And this was back in 2017.
2017. So why are you doing $15 an hour work? Hire somebody for $15 an hour to do that and free yourself up for the $100 an hour stuff.
Yeah, invest in your future.
So since taking over the other half of Omaha, now that you have the whole city, how's it been? I know there was a bit of a dip at the beginning of the year, but I mean, how is it different from what you were doing before with only half the city?
Well, there are quite a few things that are different. She had her own relationships with some companies that we didn't have. So that was a nice switch that flipped. Some of those were warranty companies or furniture companies that were delivering furniture into this market. So we've already done quite a few pretty nice sized jobs for some of those organizations. The other thing that's in her territory that's huge is our airport. So in South, in our territory prior to taking over North, was a small, what would you call Millard?
It's just a private airport, they do some stuff, but there's no commercial flight out.
Yeah, it's a smaller, and there may be jets, but they're still private. Whereas our actual real airport is in what was her territory, which is now ours. So that's exciting, and that particular airport is undergoing a lot of changes. And I think by 2026 or 28, it's going to be an international airport. They're putting on a whole nother wing. So that's exciting because we know that as we nurture some of those relationships, that'll be more business for us. So there are a lot of exciting things that are happening within this market, which is again why we thought this makes sense. Yeah. We just have to invest in the future and in our future.
Totally.
North also has a lot of bougie lake neighborhoods.
Okay.
Which don't hurt. They have nice furniture. They have expensive furniture and boats and nice cars, and they want to keep them that way.
Yeah.
And when we got Omaha in general is pretty affluent, but there's some, really high end neighborhoods out there that are just begging for some fiber now.
Let's talk about the business model between you two right now. Who's doing what responsibility wise, task wise? Just give us a lay of the land there.
Well, clearly I'm the looks.
Yeah. I'm the muscle.
Are you?
So I'm pretty much boots on the ground. I'm also our technician. I also do some networking. This guy does a lot more than I do. But it's been worked out really well with our schedules to allow me more time to be, involved in the actual day-to-day stuff. He does most of the quoting, the invoicing. He does everything on the back end. So So at the moment, until we grow to the point where we hire somebody and I have some administrative duties to do with a tech, I'm essentially a glorified technician until then.
Okay. You are the muscle. You were.
Yeah, he is. He's the talent. He's the talent. I tell people that as I network and shake hands, kiss babies, and again, not that he never does. He does when he's not doing the tech work. But and then that said, when he gets or when we get a larger job, whether it's siding or restoring a full set in a home, like a full furniture set, then I'll be his assistant, which I don't mind doing at all. It gives us time to hang out. Like a couple weeks ago, we reupholstered 25 or
something like that.
Chairs in a urgent care. So I'm like, all right, Scott, what do you need next? And I'm just, handing him staples and pulling staples, and I'm just being his assistant. And I share that to say, like, some people may say the dynamic may be weird, is like I'm behind the scenes and scheduling and bossing him around, but he gets his time to boss me around too. So
it's a two-way street.
Okay. Yeah, I make him hold the ladder sometimes. Yep. Just come hold the ladder. We have seem to have a lot of houses that have uneven ground around them, and the ground's sloping away from the house and it's sloping back. Like there's no way a ladder is going to stand up there by himself. So I'll tell him, like, you got to come out, Wednesday,
rewind
and hold the ladder.
You were at something. You're like, yeah, this is a little weird. And he sent me a picture. I'm like, no. Wait until tomorrow. We don't need you falling off the ladder. I will come hold the ladder, if nothing else.
Occupational Health and Safety Officer Gabe to the rescue.
Yes, that's me. Safety first.
You guys came to training together. You're doing this from inception together. Do you have any advice for people who do this with friends? Because I know, some people say never go into business with your friends. Some people really advocate for it. What's your experience been like in the years working together? Lessons learned, advice to give?
So as much as we are alike, we do have differences which complement each other. So I think I'm a little bit more risk. I like to take a bit more risks. Scott's a little bit more conservative. On the flip side, he's eager to be like, all right, let's just get it done and blow it out for maybe less money. I'm more of like, hey, let's see if we can push the envelope a little bit, not charge the moon, but like, I think we're worth a little bit more. So with that helps when we even bid something or we're looking at a project of like, what do we think this is really worth that we can charge, that we obviously we want to put food on the table, but we also don't want to lose it by overcharging. So what's fair? And that, I think that yin and yang works really well.
I think we learned that while we were flipping cars, because we flipped
a lot,
40 something cars, and never once did we have over what, 3 years, 40 cars over 3 years. At no point were we, yelling at each other or, getting pissed off about what the other person was doing. And again, like sometimes I'll be like, it's been for sale for 2 months, man. Let's just cut the price and get rid of it. And sometimes he would, and sometimes he didn't. And when he didn't, eventually it would sell. Like we got our biggest flip was one I was pushing for him to bring it down a little, and he stuck to his guns, and we got, top dollar for it, which was awesome. Okay. But going through that process over several years, I think is the reason we were comfortable going into business together, because we essentially been doing business together and hadn't had any issues with it. Every day it's disagreements, but I think we both know the other person's heart is in the right place, and we make it work.
And at the end of the day, everyone's entitled to the wrong opinion.
Really, truth told, exactly.
Yeah, no, but like Scott said, realistically, we can be very rational with one another. Which is interesting, because we're both emotional people to some degree.
Yeah,
so,
but
sure. Somehow or another, like we'll listen and respect each other, and like, okay, no, you have a point. Yeah, I think this is fair. Or I'll look at something and I'm like, all right, we should charge this. And there are times where the roles have been reversed, and he's like, no, that's going to take me 5 hours. I'm like, okay, so what do we think it should be this then? And just doing time, right? Time is money. So,
and as we've come through Fibrenew, I think we have a better feeling of where the other person is at. To the point, like in the beginning, I would be like $400. Gabe was like, I was going to say $850. And now we're at the point where like, I might say $600. And he was like, okay, I was thinking $700. So we're in the same ballpark,
yeah.
But I think we've definitely, we were here and we've come to here where we both kind of feel like certain things are worth about the same amount of money. It's like I said, it's every once in a while something comes up and I'm like, you know what, that's going to take a long time. So we're going to have to take the price up. But for the most part, it's pretty we're getting pretty consistent.
And realistically, the ones that we shoot for the moon, it's like that's going to be a treacherous job. So if we get it, it really has to be worth it. I think it might be 10 hours. Okay, so we're going to shoot for the moon for this. And it's hey, if we get it, we're going to make some money. It's going to stink, but it'll be worth it.
You guys both strike me as people who will just speak their mind if you have to. So that's got to be another aspect of work, making the partnership work, right? Just say what you got to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that's not via text or over the phone. It's like, hey, let's catch up. And then it's, this is what's going on with whatever, even our personal lives, right? Again, because the friendship was first. So when we first started this, that was the big thing of like, listen, at the end of the day, no money is worth ruining a friendship. So if there's something that's not right, let's talk about it.
I just figured it out. I think you guys are the new Warren and Charlie of Omaha. That's what's going on here. I mean, they were friends as well and business partners for 50 years or something like that. So
yeah.
They did it. You guys can do it too.
Maybe we'll get there one day, right? Yeah. Maybe we will get there, right? You have to visualize that.
Okay, perfect segue, Gabe. Let's talk about the future. So we talked about the airport you guys now have. We talked about some team building ideas that you guys have, but really, what's the big picture? 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the line for you guys? What's the vision?
So definitely, as we said earlier, technician this year, we'd like to scale up to 5 techs, so somewhere between 3 and 5 techs. Have that admin like full time doing just this because she is helping me with some of the other stuff I have going on. Ironically, I thought she was going to help more with that when she started, and really, it's like 80% Fibrenew, which is totally fine because again, she's really good at what she's doing. So I'm like, let's keep pushing more stuff on her. But she's also just starting, so I know as she becomes more efficient, or as she learns more, she'll become more efficient, and then we'll be able to still give her more tasks. So that's the short term, but
yeah, I mean, even beyond that, like I said, we've already talked about and Ann has actually mentioned to us before. I'm going to retire at some point. Like you guys want in on this or what? Is absolutely, of course.
Yeah. In fact, I reached out to her at one point. We were talking about something else, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to mention to you, like at one point, she mentioned she didn't have kids that were interested." And I was like, "Well," and she's like, "I didn't even finish the sentence." She's like, "You guys are going to be my first call. I'm not there yet, but 3 to 5 years,
we Fibrenew Eastern Nebraska, basically at that point."
Yeah,
Ann's territory is physically
massive.
Really big. So I think the most challenging part of that would be we'd have to hire a technician that lives there because we're too far out to be sending somebody out, on 2-hour drives to get someplace.
It's a waste of time and fuel. So someone that lives in that vicinity and train them, and someone that's trustworthy, and so that would be part of the technician thing. So I'm glad you brought that up. So that that definitely be on the tail end of some of those dreams and aspirations, but it'd be neat to have 3 territories. It'd be, like you said, a lot of ground to cover. But
let's have comment on some of the best parts of running a Fibrenew franchise, individually or maybe as a team, and then comment on some of the challenges that have come up along the way.
Sure. The flexibility that we have, the control over our schedule, the scope of work is so wide that when we get to the point, we really will be kind of segmenting stuff seasonally. Like we're going to focus on, we're really getting our foot in the door with siding here, and we get a ton of hail. So as that continues to grow and more, roofers find out what we do, that will continue to fill those months. And I remember Chad telling us that he's like, I got 3 people doing nothing but hail for 4 months out of the year, and that would be awesome. But that would require us to get to the point where we are, scheduling months ahead. Like, you want that couch redone, we can do it in November or December.
Goes back to the earlier problem.
Yeah. So I really like that I enjoy that the scope of work is so big, and it gives you an opportunity to make money in just about anywhere. Everybody's a potential customer for Fibrenew, unless it's a dude who is a woodworker sitting on a metal bench. He's about the only person who doesn't have a need for Fibrenew. So,
but false, because he has to drive.
He has a car,
right? So,
yeah.
I think it was Scott in Canada says it. Everyone needs Fibrenew, they just don't know it yet, because plastic, leather, and vinyl is everywhere in our lives. So I had said to Scott early on. I said, if we fail at this, it's us, not the model. I mean, it's so diverse. Plastic, leather, and vinyl is everywhere. So, I mean, that's that's extremely exciting, and it's just never ending.
Very true.
And then in terms of challenges, hardest thing is just getting the name out. Like I said, the scope of work is so wide. You can really prospect anywhere, but in a market like ours that is so hail impacted, like getting the roofing guys to understand that we are not their competition. We can help them. We can subcontract for them. We can, there's so many ways this could work.
And that's the thing that I try to do is I try to shake as many of those guys' hands as possible. One, because a lot of those guys I do know from my roofing time, and just, hey guys, you guys can get O&P by using us as a sub. And I understand that these small 3 hail hits are not your number one concern, but if we can be that 5th trade for you, now you get O&P, that changes the mathematical formula on the whole claim for you in a big way.
Okay.
So that's one of my core focuses for this year. The weather just changed, as I said earlier, so that's why Scott was able to do some windows. It's like Liberty Mutual had reached out to us directly the end of last year. We're just going to continue to try to nurture those relationships.
Let's just explain O&P so everyone's on the same page too. So
sure.
What does it mean, and why is it significant?
O&P specifically is overhead and profit. So depending on the insurance company and depending on the claim, if there are certain number of trades involved on that claim, the head, the general contractor, can actually get overhead and profit on the whole claim. But they need to replace more than just, or that claim needs to have more than just, like, say, roof and gutters on it. It would have roof, gutters, siding, windows. Maybe there was some interior damage. Maybe the deck was damaged. So at that point, they have 3, 4, 5 trades. They can get overhead and profit on the whole claim. So for that general contractor, mathematically, that changes the claim in a huge way. So if our $750 invoice isn't so appealing to them, well, do the math on the whole claim. Because now it was, and specifically to quantify that, it's 10% profit, 10% overhead on the whole claim.
Shoot us a couple pictures, and they're like, all right.
Yeah.
It'll be X, cool, do it. And again, if we're that 5th trade, now they're not as concerned about the $750 or whatever the line item is for us. We just made their whole claim 20% more profitable.
Exactly. Love it.
And so you asked a question about what's been challenging.
Yeah.
As Scott alluded to earlier, being that it is so diverse, at times it can almost be overwhelming of like, who should we door knock on? Whose hands do we want to shake? What area of town should we knock on? Because again, it's medical facilities, restaurants, exterior remodelers, new home builders.
Oh.
It's just so.
I mean, if we had a dollar for every chiropractor or dentist office in Omaha, I mean, we'd retire.
We'd have lots of dollars.
There's so many.
Yeah.
And so when we prospect, we try to pick an area of town to focus on, because I mean, you can't just go, I'm going to hit all chiropractic offices. Well, you'd be driving all over town to do it, so we pick an area, look, blow the map up, look at what's there. And then as we get into like some of the strip malls and stuff, we're just literally driving to the parking lot, looking, okay, that one.
Every restaurant, every medical facility, every
optometrist, massage place. I mean,
fast food, whatever it is. Like, even if I have a meeting at like a Scooters or a Starbucks, when I leave, I drop a card. If I have a dinner with the family or a business meeting at a restaurant, drop a card.
Cool, guys. Anything we didn't touch on here that you would want to comment on?
Just I guess really quick. So Scott doesn't really get into too much because, again, I do more of the stuff behind the scenes. But whenever someone's exploring franchises and exploring Fibrenew specifically, some people on the back end will share my number and my contact information from time to time. Yeah. And the question is usually asked, or sometimes they don't ask it because they can tell how passionate I am about Fibrenew as a brand. My advice would be go for it. I mean, you guys preach about it being a family, or talk about it being a family, and that's an understatement. I mean, the amount of support that we get from the back end is monumental. And as I've touched on a little bit on this call, I do own another business, and I look at what I spend for that business and what I get for that business, and that I'm truly in business for myself. And yes, I can network with some other like businesses and collab in that arena, and I do. But seeing what you guys have and what you guys have to offer from an international level I've never seen anything else like it. And I've seen some stuff, and I'm not king. I'm not Warren Buffett, so I haven't seen it all, but from what I've seen, this is pretty special. It's pretty incredible. You guys have done some awesome, and we talk about it offline a lot of how fortunate we are that we found this, and how we're in business for ourselves, but not by ourselves.
Yeah.
The support is it's incredible.
And the training crew is awesome. I mean, but yeah, having that support from those guys is really helpful. And then all the back end support too, like the CRM and the corporate partnerships and all that stuff. It's just,
you're not starting at zero. I mean, even when we flipped the switch, we had leads, week one, which was great. So,
some of them are just things that just work out, right? Like, Square Trade, big warranty company for furniture and stuff. And, everything that Nebraska Furniture Mart sells gets a Square Trade warranty. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a massive furniture store. Everybody in Nebraska buys from it.
Yeah.
And so if nothing else, we've got that on a consistent basis because it's the biggest furniture supplier in the state.
Right on. Well, we'll call it a wrap there. Thank you again. That was awesome.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks a lot. Ciao.
All right. Bye.
Thanks again to Gabriel and Scott for taking time to have this conversation. We hope you enjoyed listening to their story, advice, and insights. If you're interested in hearing more podcasts with Fibrenew franchisees, please subscribe to the Fibrenew Exchange on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, each month we hold live webinars with Fibrenew franchisees where we discuss all things Fibrenew franchising, from the work we do, our products, training, support, marketing, technology, and a whole lot more. To register your spot, hop over to fibrenew.com/FOF, and we look forward to seeing you there. Until next time, take good care. Cheers.